Creepers left to rise, buzz like crazy. Everybody's trying to stimulate it. Spiders in the mirror and feel this can't be right. Back to the scene of a Friday night, to a blessed collision still frozen tight. Spear drinkers, Cupid and the sound of her first chime. And why did you argue? We're dreaming of those eyes, the best part of my life. And when we make love, babe, don't make a sound, the clock won't turn around. Ooh, you turn around.
Hello my friends, and good morning, and welcome back to another reading vlog. I just made this. This is like my homemade for dummies iced chai. I don't know. I like making drinks. Maybe you have noticed that. I like fun drinks. Not alcoholic drinks. I don't drink alcohol. But I love like low calorie just because I love drinks so much. Like okay, this is going in a weird direction. Hello, welcome to a reading vlog. Let's talk about books. Anyway, this is my drink. In my Historical Hellions cup that Samantha made me from Books with Samantha, which I love. And it's pretty good. It's fine. It is early in the morning, early-ish, and so the sun is like right in front of my studio window, which is really nice for working, but not for filming vlog clips. So, it's a new reading vlog. It's a new week, and I have... August has been the month of dark romance and paranormal romance. Like, that is literally all that I have read. And I'm not even sad about it. Although actually, like just yesterday, this morning actually, I had like a hankering for a historical, you know, so I'm sure I'll get back to historicals soon. Anyway, I decided to start this vlog today. It is Wednesday because I finished my audiobook that I was listening to and I am starting a new one. So last night I just finished the Brutal Birthright series by Sophie Lark. I just finished the last book in that series and I really, really loved it. So I was kind of in like a dark mafia romance reading mood, and then I also just finished a paranormal romance arc by Emma Scott, The Sinner, which I liked. I thought that was really good. That comes out, I think, August 15th. So I decided that the next book I would pick up is Deliver by Pam Godwin. So I actually am hoping to include the first 3 books in the first bind-up of this series, which is called Deliver Us. I bought all 3 of those. It was an Audible bundle for 1 credit, which was a good deal because it's like a 30-hour audiobook for all of those, for those 3. So I'm excited about that. So I decided to start this reading vlog with that, and depending on how the books go, I'm going to just continue reading probably the first 3 for this reading vlog. I don't know. I am definitely really very interested in this series. I am a huge fan of Pam Godwin, and I just really want to read this series. So hopefully that'll be interesting to you, because I think there are like 9 books total in this series, and I'm not sure how many of them I'm going to vlog, but we'll at least do the first one. That's what I'm going to commit to at this point. I don't know. We'll see how things go. So the first book, all I really know about this series, this is dark romance, and this is very dark. I've heard this goes into some extremely dark places. It is dealing with sex trafficking, and I'm sure there is all kinds of abuse and assault happening here. We open the book with our heroine Liv, who is... I'm only on chapter 4, so I have a little bit of insight into her character, but not much. We open the book with her sort of going out to scout for something that a client is requesting, a sex slave, basically. And so she is going to this college game where she has sort of narrowed down her choices to this one young man named Josh, who fits everything, all the criteria that this master wants. And the criteria is extremely specific. but then they have to then mold him and shape him to be exactly what the master wants. And so this is definitely dark subject matter, but I am always intrigued with Pam Godwin's books because of how I feel like she handles just this constant dichotomy of the darkness with also there being like a ironclad reason why the darkness is happening, and I think that is something that is sort of a pet peeve of mine in any type of a book, but I think that it can happen often in indie romances with maybe authors who aren't very experienced writers, where they kind of just throw all kinds of trauma and, like dark topics in there to maybe attract an audience or for shock value, but there's never really like an ironclad reason that you literally 100% believe that is why they made these choices that they did. That's what led them to this darkness in their life. And I feel like Pam hits that for me every single time. So that as I'm reading it, I'm like, she literally had no other options, or he literally had no other options. This is the only way for him to go forward in life. And then she always brings that back around in a way that they heal from that and have a happily ever after, and they're triumphant over that, and it just is my favorite thing ever. Like, it is literally one of my favorite things ever. I think that she is one of the few dark romance authors, and granted, I'm not extensively well read in dark romance, but I am a huge fan of hers, and I have never seen anyone do it like her, where she takes you to the darkest places, where it feels so hopeless, and it feels so soul-crushingly dark, but then she is able to bring you back out into the light with hope and a wonderful happily ever after. And I just love that so very much. So, this is where I'm at in the first book. And I am nervously excited. I know that my heart is going to get broken. I know it's going to be hard, but I'm so excited to see how she pulls it off. So, starting the first book, Deliver, and I'll let you know what happens as I progress in that. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to my truck. I am about 60% of the way through Deliver by Pam Godwin, and I wanted to come and talk about it for a minute. I am having a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings about this book. This is definitely the darkest dark romance that I have ever read. This really, really goes to some real dark places, I mean, they are essentially sex slaves. Josh, the hero, is being sold into slavery, and so he's being trained up to a very particular way that his new master or buyer wants him to be. And Liv is the deliverer. She is basically the trainee, she's the mistress, and I think that this book works for me in a lot of ways because of how complex both of the characters are. Liv is not falling into that stereotype of being like the mistress who enjoys delivering punishments or who enjoys her work, or she's just really like evil. Like, she has so much struggle with her job, and the reason that she is still even doing this work, it's basically something that she's been forced to do because of her family is under threat, So she's been forced into making this her life, and this life actually is, part of this life is what has endangered her family. I'm trying to not spoil this, but at the same time, I feel like there are so many things that I want to talk about. So there are definitely scenes that are non-consensual on page. At this point, they are not between the hero and the heroine, though, and it's difficult to read that. It's difficult to experience that with them. It's difficult to see both Liv and Josh in that moment when they physically could overpower the person who owns them, the person who's buying them, when they could physically overpower them and get away. But if they do that, their loved ones will be hurt or harmed. And so that is the key. That is how the people in this industry own them, and they own their loyalty. And it's really pretty heartbreaking. Honestly, it's very sad. It's very heavy. It's very heavy. But I think another thing that makes this work for me so well is Josh's character. You know, like, I really do love Liv, and I love seeing her really strive to just live. Like, she is struggling to live with the choices that she is being forced to make to protect her loved ones. And you can see that she does something that's kind of similar to what Ivory did in Dark Notes, where she would play a song in her head, or she would find some way to be able to escape from that torment at that time. She finds some way to get her mind not in that moment. And I think of how many survivors of sex crimes like that, or any type of sexual assault or violence that is repeated, how many times do they have to use those same techniques, you know? It's very... It makes me feel so much sympathy for her and her situation. And I think that says a lot, too, about Pam Godwin, because when an author makes you feel so much for made-up people, that is a fantastic author, you know? I am really loving this story, but I do think that I definitely want to go and read something else after this first book. So originally in my vlog, I wanted to do the first 3 books, and now I'm sort of like, okay, I definitely need something that's a little bit lighter, not quite so heavy and depressing, you know? And I know there's going to be that happily ever after, because that's what Pam Godwin does. She always delivers on that, you know? But Josh, let's talk about Josh. So Josh is... honestly, he is so strong. Like, his heart stays pure. And granted, he hasn't had the time that Liv has to see all of this happen and to have all of these terrible things happen to him personally. But something that affects him even more is seeing how that affects Liv, because from the moment he met Liv and she sort of like tricked him to come and to her house so that they could kidnap him for the sex trafficking, from the moment he met her, he has always had feelings for her, and even if it was just intrigue and attraction at the beginning, and they've gradually grown. And I think that's something that's really beautiful about that, is seeing Liv is the one who is training him. Liv is the one who is getting him used to all of these really terrible, abusive, horrible things that he's going to have to do to perform in this trade. And he never once hates her up to now. This is the 60% of the way in, you know. Instead, he sort of admires her for how she's able to live like this and not constantly despair, or to even like maybe not even attempt suicide. Like, she has a strength about her, a resiliency about her that he admires, and it's that is sort of making him fall in love with her. So this is a very twisted, and I say that twisted in a way in that you can tell these are circumstances that aren't in their control, but these two people are still finding a way to fall in love. And that is something that is very powerful to me in dark romance, is how there's a happily ever after for everyone. Everyone gets a happily ever after. Even in dark romance, when you are in the darkest moments of your life that ordinary people don't even really think might exist, that you can still find a love, and that you can still find a happily ever after, you know? And obviously it is fiction, right? But I love that concept of no matter what darkness you wade through, there is a person out there, there is a happily ever after for you. And I just love that. That is the hope. That is the hope of romance. That is why I'm a romance champion. That is what I love about romance, is that no matter what happens in your life, there is a chance for you to have a happily ever after. Happily ever after can be for everyone. And I just love that so much. So it's beautiful. There was something that Josh said in this moment. Like, I just finished reading an extremely dark scene that had a lot to do with Liv. It was basically something that was happening to her, and Josh was involved, and he performed in this way to protect her, to take care of her. because he knew that if he didn't, worse things would happen to her. But at the same time, as he's watching these bad things happen to her, these terrible depravities happen to her, he wants nothing more than to rescue her and to save her. But he knows that if he does in this moment, her loved ones will be killed. And so he doesn't, because he loves her. And so it's so complicated. But he says in here, after this moment, after this really terrible moment, he says, this is Josh, he says, maybe if he hadn't lived such a sheltered life, he could have predicted this, would have been able to stop it. Now all he could do was trust that she had made the best decision for her loved ones without destroying herself in the process. And no matter what happened, he intended to be there to help her heal. I just love that so much. Honestly, I feel like that this book is not necessarily, this is the type of book that is not enjoyable all the time, you know, like the darkness is very real darkness, but I do feel like it's one of those situations where it makes those sparks of hope and love all the more beautiful. So I am really definitely into this. I'm kind of taking my time. I've already been listening to this for a day. Usually I can finish an audiobook in a day, just because I listen to it while I work, but I slowed the audiobook way down, and yeah, so I don't know. I'll come back with my final thoughts on that, but I kind of wanted to come and talk while all of these thoughts were fresh in my mind, because I felt like it was just hitting me how beautiful and how powerful romance is in the way that it conveys that message of there's a happily ever after for everyone. So I will check back in after I have read some more. When I'm done, that's when I'll check in, and I'll have an update for what I'm going to read next, because I was going to continue on in this series, but I just don't think that I can right now. I think I need something a little more cheerful, a little happier, so we'll see what I pick.
Your wings in the sky tonight. I'm sitting on a rock and watching heron fly. Feet in the water, out the way. It has been such a beautiful day. A beautiful
Hello, my friends. Good morning. Kazi says good morning. He wants this drink. Good morning. Okay, it's been a few days since I last updated you on this vlog, and I have finished 3 books, so we're going to talk about them. So, I finished Delivered by Pam Godwin. I gave this 5 stars. From the moment I first started reading this book, I just had a feeling, I'm like, this is going to be a 5-star read. Like, I just knew it. And even though I know Pam Godwin's books will always take a dark turn that makes me feel like a happily ever after is never going to happen, or that makes me very uncomfortable, or something that I really don't want to read, I know that she will turn it around and give me that happily ever after, and that's exactly what happened here. The ending was extremely satisfying for this book. It sets up what's going to happen for the rest of the books in this series. I believe there's 9 in this series, so I'm only on book 1, so I have so many more to continue on into, and I'm so excited about that. There was also a twist at this ending that was so satisfying and that really made me a hardcore fan of the heroine, Liv. Like, it was so perfect. I loved this book so much. That now, make no mistake, like, this is probably, I think I mentioned this in my other clip, it's been so many days since I talked about it, I don't remember, but this is probably without a doubt the darkest dark romance that I've ever read, and it has tons. I would say, just if you have triggers, I would check the trigger warnings. I'm not going to mention them all here because it's quite extensive. But I will say that this was an incredibly powerful book. It was beautiful, and it was just everything, honestly. It was an emotional ride, but it was like so fulfilling. It was so satisfying. It was perfect. 5 stars. I loved it. I can't wait to read more. However, when I finished that, I kind of felt like I wanted something that was a little lighter hearted, a little bit not so dark. So the next book that I picked up was 10 Ways to Be Adored When Landing a Lord. Like, I cannot remember the order of this title to save my life. Also, this has a step back, which is beautiful, and I love it, and I'm so sad that we're not doing step backs anymore. Honestly, I saw the back cover of Bombshell, and it's beautiful, but there's no step back, and I hate that. Anyway. Moving on. So I picked this up. This is the second book in her, I don't even know what this, I can't remember what this series is called. The Rules series. This is her first historical romance series. This is book 2. This follows Isabel and Lord St. Nicholas, right? No. Lord Nicholas St. John. So Nicholas is actually the brother, the twin of Ralston, who's in the first book. And he is an interesting hero. He served in the military, he fought in the war, and he is tasked with hunting down Georgiana, a titled young woman who has recently fled her home and escaped, and she is heavily in play in later books of Sarah MacLean's, which was very exciting to see her beginnings here. So when he goes to track her down, he ends up finding her at Isabel's, and now Isabel has built this house for women. It's called the Minerva House, and it's basically like a refuge and a safe haven where women can go if they are like seeking asylum, basically if they're trying to escape from maybe abusive husbands or really bad situations. It's basically a safe place for them. And she funds this all herself, Isabel does. And so when Nicholas finds that's where Georgiana is, he immediately is drawn with Isabel, and they have an attraction, and it is their romance. So, of course, they both are carrying secrets that get in the way, that pull them apart, and, you know, that kind of things that happens in romance. There was pretty high level of miscommunication in this book, I think, which at times was honestly kind of frustrating. Like, I understand that in most romance novels, you're going to have a miscommunication happening there. But it just seemed like in this one, like, and I know the stakes were higher because of what she was safeguarding and what he was trying to do, but I also felt like if they had just freaking communicated a little better, then the big main third act conflict wouldn't have even happened. So I loved the premise of this. I really loved the concept of Minerva House. I loved Nicholas. I thought he was a pretty good hero. I really think there were some moments where he was especially swoony with Isabel, and he just really, really loved and adored her, and I loved that so much. I was a little frustrated at Isabel's treatment of him, honestly. I felt like he kind of got the short end of the stick, and I didn't love how she handled things, but I do think that she had a pretty good grovel in the end, but I also feel like he kind of forgave her really quickly, so that's an interesting setup in here where we have the heroine who kind of needed to grovel. So anyway, I liked this book. I did not love it. I think this is one of my least favorite Sarah MacLean books, and I gave it 3 stars, and that's largely because I feel like this concept, overall concept of a safe place for women, you know, fighting for women's rights, fighting to keep them protected and safe, I feel like that is something that Sarah does in every single one of her books. In a lot of them, okay? And I feel like this definitely had some parallels with Bombshell in that way, because that's largely what the Hells Bells do, is that they are out there, but they're more of a violent group. Like, they're very much more like vigilantes. They're out to get justice for these women, so that makes it a little funner. Hey, stop, doggo. He's chomping on his foot. But, now he wants me to rub his belly. You little nerd. So it felt like it was kind of, and that's hard for me to say because I don't want to say it's a recycled plot because this was only her second book, but it just feels like, having read more of her work, I can see she consistently repeats the same themes, the same plots, the same interactions between the characters, and it didn't feel fresh at all to me, and I didn't really... It also felt... Okay, so this was pretty slow moving, and it happens within 4 days, the romance does, and their romance was very insta-lovey to me, so I didn't really love that. So honestly, like, looking... I still feel like the first book in this series is better. Stop chumping your foot! I like the first book in this series better. This one was fairly slow moving. It didn't really engage me a ton. It was fun, but I think that it is one of the most forgettable Sarah MacLean's that I've ever read, and I just feel like she's done this exact concept in her newer books, and she's done it better. So, 3 stars for this one. It's not terrible, definitely, but it's also not a favorite of mine or particularly amazing in any way. So, 3 stars. So, I read that one. And then this week, the physical book that I've been reading that I thought I would just talk about really quickly is Gothicana by Runix. So, this book has been on my radar since I think I first even heard about this. I think I saw Jessica from Peace Love Books. She posted about this title when it was released on Instagram, and I was like instantly intrigued because the cover looks spooky and creepy, and like the tagline is basically like a gothic romance, dark academia, and I was like, I am into that. Like, yes, give it to me. So it was one of those books that like I wanted to read, but I was probably going to save it for spooky season because, spoiler alert, this book would be perfect to read for Halloween time. This is like a perfect Halloween romance. It was creepy, it was mysterious, but it was also heavily romance. Like, it was honestly really, really good. I really enjoyed this. I honestly, like, I think I may end up giving this, I haven't rated it yet, I just barely finished it. And it's sort of like a 4, 4.5, not quite a 5-star, but still, like, really, really good. So, anyway, I digressed. I do that a lot. I just go off on tangents and I'm so sorry. Anyway. So I was talking to Jen, like I do, my best little sis, my little book bestie, Jen from the Book Refuge, and she was like, I think I'm going to pick this up next. And I'm like, ooh, I want to read that too. Let's read it together. And of course, because Jen reads so much faster than me, she finished it like that night. And it took me probably like 5 days to read it, but that's largely just because it's not that I didn't like it, because I did. Like, it was very mysterious, it was very engaging, I wanted to keep reading it, I just didn't have time to physically read it, and there's no audio for it. So, now that I've got all that backstory, and I'm not sure, I think I'm probably going to rate this a 4 on Goodreads, but it's a high 4. It's a very high 4. I really enjoyed this. I felt like it was so unique, it was so fresh, it was just... It had everything that I love about gothic romances, like, that you read about in, like, Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre, like, that type of gothic vibe. It really felt like that, but it's not set in those times. Like, it's a contemporary book, but it has that sort of a vibe, and it has total dark academia vibes because it's set at this school that is basically an invitation-only school where it's owned by this family who's owned it for... It's a university, it's not a high school also. So that's good. The heroine is like 21 or 22. And it's an invitation-only school, and it's basically... They seek out people who are less fortunate or who don't have opportunities to go to regular university, and they allow them to... They offer them, like, scholarships to come to this school. So that is very cool. So our heroine is Corvina, which actually means, I believe, little crow, and I thought that was very, very cool and very cute. And she has recently sort of been basically kind of abandoned, not really abandoned. Her mother was sick, has schizophrenia, and was sent to a mental hospital. And so Corvina has sort of been floundering and trying to live and survive on her own without her mother. And she receives an invitation to come to this school. So she immediately goes, she's very excited, and as soon as she gets there, she can tell that there's, like, this, like, the whole building, like, it also had a little bit of, like, a Hogwarts vibe, like, that's sort of how it felt like this really, really spooky, creepy, but also cool dark academia specialty university, you know, although they don't teach magic, it's just a regular university. And, it just had such great vibes. Like, this book had such good atmosphere. It was just creepy and dark and spooky, but not, like, too scary, you know? Like, I I loved it. I loved that part of it so much. So, like, honestly, the more I'm talking about this, like, is it a 5-star? Like, I don't even know. I really enjoyed it, honestly. It wasn't perfect, for sure. It definitely had some flaws. I felt like the flaws were mostly surrounding the mystery element, or I felt like there were breadcrumbs that were laid throughout. There's a big mystery running through the whole plot. But at the end of the reveal, it was sort of like, oh, well, I could have guessed that, but anyway, so it wasn't like, it's not like a 10 out of 10 on the mystery. Like, the whole mystery subplot was a little bit, some of it was a little bit obvious, but it was still, like, engaging enough where I'm like, ooh, this is fun, what's gonna happen, you know, like, I don't know, it was just so unlike anything that I've read before. I truly, truly enjoyed it. I did like the writing style. I felt like it had a little bit of a, not necessarily flowery, it wasn't flowery at all, but I loved the way that she used words to really convey this dark academia vibe. Like, her word choice was really beautiful, and it felt very precise, and I really liked that a lot. So, the basic mystery is that a student goes missing or is murdered every so many years when they have this black ball every so often, and they're coming up on another black ball right around the full moon time, and creepy stuff starts happening, and they're worried somebody's going to get missing. They still don't know who was missing before. There's murder, there's deaths. It's a whole thing, you know. So, the other thing that was really great about this was the hero. The hero's name is Vad. Vad, not Vlad. Although, this book is very much sort of like a whole nod to Dracula, the Dracula book. Like, it's mentioned several times. Vad is basically a Dracula, except for he's not a vampire, you know? Like, its focus is very much on Crowina, right? No, Corvina? I can't remember her name. I've read it, too. Corvina. Right? Corvina. Corvina's whole, basically, like, her sexual awakening is a big theme here, which is very similar to Dracula. Like, that's also mentioned in the book, and it was just great. So Vad is a professor at the school, so this is a little bit of a teacher-student relationship, but they're both adults, and the taboo element wasn't, like, hardcore there. It was just sort of, like, mentioned, like, oh, teachers and students can't have liaisons and stuff like that, and of course they do, you know. This book was pretty steamy also, and it was just really, honestly, a ton of fun. It was very fun. It was very, the romance between these two, Vad and Corvina, was a little quick, but also very intense, and I feel like because of how the mood was such a, like, a gothic romance type of thing, like, I bought into how dramatic they were about each other, and I bought into it happening really quickly, and I just really enjoyed it. Honestly, there was a time in the middle where I was sort of like, okay, I don't know how I feel about this, I don't know, it's probably going to be a 4-star, so, like, I feel like those thoughts are keeping me from putting it at a 5-star, but, like, as I'm talking about it, and I'm remembering how much I enjoyed the reading experience, I think this is a 5-star for me. Probably 4.5 rounded up to 5-star because, like I said, like, it's not perfect, but it was such a fun read, and I just truly enjoyed it. I thought it was very unique. I thought it had perfect, dark, creepy, spooky, Dracula-esque type of involvement here. There is a slight supernatural element here. It was just really, really great. I would say so this is darker, so there are some trigger warnings for mental health, suicide, murder, suicide ideation, and also probably, yeah, like mental health is a big aspect of this, but it does also deal with, like, supernatural elements, so it was just fun. I really liked it, honestly. So yeah, I'm gonna give this 5 stars because if you're looking for a sort of creepy Halloween type mood romance that's got a little bit of a mystery but also has a pretty hot, very dramatic, very broody hero, I would definitely recommend this because it was a good time, and it's on Kindle Unlimited, so I really enjoyed it, and now, after I've talked about it, it's a 5-star read. It was fun. I really, really liked it. So, okay, there we go. We're going to end this vlog here, and just talking about those 3 books. It was a really good reading week. I think probably, sadly, the book that kind of drugged me down, this book took me like 3 days to read, and I listened to it on audio, and that's a long time for me, and I think that it just, I don't know if it, it's not, It's not bad, it just wasn't hitting me right. So 3 stars. So, okay, there we go. Deliver was fantastic. If you're a fan of dark romance and you haven't read that yet, I definitely would recommend it, but make sure you check the trigger warnings out. And Gothicana, keep that on your radar because that one was so fun. I think that would be a perfect fall Halloween romance. Like, the romance elements were not slacking at all. It was great. Alright, there we go. We're finished with this. Thanks so much for watching this video, my friends. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have made it this far, please feel free to leave me a pumpkin or maybe a vampire. One of those for Gothicana. Thanks so much. I'll see you in my next video.